Good afternoon. I'm Tim O'Malley, CEO of Atima Media and Marketing. Welcome to the 20th Annual Hospitality and Tourism Summit, and specifically a great panel discussion entitled How to Promote Your Business or Event Through Social Media Influencers. We're producing today's panel live with the help of our friends at Expo. They've been great registration partners for years and have created this virtual platform that we're using today. We hope you enjoy it as much as we do. On the topic of shout outs, we're so fortunate to have some fantastic partners that have helped us to produce this event. I'd like to thank our premier sponsors, Navy Pier, Skydeck Chicago, Fashion Outlets of Chicago, the Shops at Northbridge, and Old Post Office. I'd like to thank our supporting sponsors, Live Art International, Safe Expo, and Salvi Media. I'd also like to show gratitude to our participating sponsors, Choose Chicago, National Concierge Association, Chicago Hotel Concierge Association, Spectra, Levy, Show Services, NHS Global Events, Balloons by Tommy, FedEx, Accurate Printing, Quest Events, and Expo. And finally, I'd like to thank Chicago Magic Company, Compass Hotel by Margaritaville, Sable Hotel on Navy Pier, Signature Transportation Group, Boston Beer Company, Chicago Loop Alliance, and Offshore. In fact, please join us at Offshore for our 20th anniversary celebration of the summit at 6:30 on Tuesday. It's after the trade show. It's located on Navy Pier. Offshore is the world's largest rooftop bar with expansive views of the skyline and the lake. We'll also have great entertainment, food, and beverages. It's going to be a great evening. Great way to cap off a fun day. So if you haven't registered for it, you can do so through our website at www.h.hds.events, just exactly where you registered for this. So speaking of the trade show, the opening ceremony is less than a week away. I look forward to seeing you at 12:30 on Tuesday. We're so excited to get our industry back together, and we're going to do it safely. It's so important that we take this step together as an industry to show people that Chicago is open to host visitors and events. It's time. Together, we can lead our industry back towards normalcy. So Tuesday is going to be a fantastic day. We'll have over 80 exhibitors at the trade show and 800 people, including the who's who of influencers in our city. You'll see meeting and event planners, hotel concierge, guest services and salespeople, DMCs, social media influencers, industry leaders, and more. Not to mention some of Chicago's top tourism group and private event-oriented organizations. You'll also be able to sample some tasty food and drinks. And there's a few new items this year that I want to share with you. First, the event will be held in the Aon Grand Ballroom at Navy Pier and in 5 adjacent spaces for a total potential capacity of over 13,000. Since we're only expecting about 800 attendees, there will be plenty of space for social distance. Second, there will be COVID-19 safety measures in place. So first, Navy Pier has received the GBAC Star accreditation from the Global Biorisk Advisory Council, and we have partnered with Safe Expo to create and execute our overall safety plan. So based upon current rules, we'll all be masked up, there'll be temperature checks and more. Third, we'll be offering tours of Navy Pier. So if you haven't seen some of their new offerings for events and for visitors, you don't want to miss it. And finally, we'll be producing an entertainment showcase this year brought to you by Live Art International. So if you're looking to find entertainers to book, or if you want to just see live entertainment, you need to come to see this. You'll see one of Chicago's hottest bands, amazing magical performances, and a variety of Chicago's greatest talents from blues to pop to classical. I personally can't wait for this. So it's just so important that we take this step together as an industry to show people that it's safe to get together again. It's safe to do meetings here again. It's safe to travel here again. It's time. So let's get on with the reason we're here. We've got a fantastic panel here for you this afternoon entitled How to Promote Your Business or Event Through Social Media Influencers. I have the honor of introducing our moderator, Daniel Thomas. Daniel is the CEO of Times01, a global creative communications agency that's headquartered in Chicago's Wrigley Building, but has offices in New Zealand and Canada. Daniel is a storyteller and communicator at heart, and he's deeply rooted in the tourism and travel industry. Times01 works with clients to develop unique, creative communication and strategic marketing plans that produce significant and lasting results. So a few of Times01's clients include Illinois Office of Tourism, Navy Pier, the Magnificent Mile Association, and the Chicago Loop Alliance. Daniel currently serves on the board of the Mag Mile Association, the Chicago Police Foundation, and he's president of the Australian New Zealand American Chamber of Commerce, Midwest Board of Directors. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Daniel Thomas. Daniel?
Hi, everyone. Thanks for that great intro, Tim. And it's an absolute pleasure to be here with you all. And Tim and Dylan and the entire team at A Team, I thank you for everything that you do, just for the industry, hospitality, tourism, and congratulations on your 20th year. I'm delighted to join you all here today to chat about a number of my favorite topics. And speaking of who's who and influencers, I've got a real star panel joining us today. And today's really about you taking away some practical examples and ideas that you can use to promote your business. And so I'm going to let our panelists introduce themselves very shortly. And I think today, you know, it's such a pivotal time, and an event like A Team's Hospitality and Tourism Summit really is just coming at really a critical time in what I like to call our comeback, right? And so those guidelines are being relaxed. We're seeing good numbers around CDC guidelines and vaccinations, and business and people are starting to get a little bit more confidence, right, in getting back out there. So, you know, you all know better than most that this pandemic really turned not only all of our lives upside down, but the industry upside down. And here we are, nearly over a year later, with vaccines readily available. And really there is this desire for people to get outdoors and travel and explore. There's pent-up demand. While there's concerned sort of optimism out there, the industry and people are traveling in greater droves. And so today we'll be talking about one of my favorite topics is really inspiring travel and working with influencers to develop engaging content. So the purpose, as I mentioned, is to give you, the restaurants, attractions, hotels, event planners, and everyone right across the hospitality and event industry, tangible best practice when working with influencers, and the opportunity to meet 3 very top tier influencers based right here in this great city of Chicago. So without further ado, I'm going to let them introduce themselves, and I'd like to welcome and start with Satna. Good to have you with us.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here. So a little bit about myself. My name is Sapna Dalal, and I started my blog, Vegetarian Tourist, almost 8 years ago. And it was really a way for me to showcase 2 of my biggest passions, which are traveling the world and being vegetarian. Is just a part of who I am. And I knew it was a way to share things that, especially being vegetarian, that, you know, was tough sometimes when you're traveling. You're out in like Greece, for example, or in Cambodia. Like, what do you eat when you go there? So I started as a way to share about my experiences through my blog, and then through that I started my social media accounts. And it's just been a really wonderful journey. I really had a great time just being able to have so many experiences and adventures that I probably wouldn't have if I didn't start my fun way to share about it on social media.
I just love that, Satna, and I know you're nearly 20,000 followers on Instagram this morning. I'm suitably hungry, and you've given me some inspiration for some dining spots and ingredients for this weekend. So thank you for that. I'm now going to hand over to Dr. Kiara King. Great to have you with us.
Thank you so much for having me, Daniel. Thank you for that warm welcome. I am Dr. Kiara King. I'm a board certified obstetrician and gynecologist in the Chicago area. And you may be wondering, what does that have to do with influencing? I'm also a digital content creator in the health and wellness space, as well as in the fashion and lifestyle spaces. I started my blog and social media platform about 5 years ago when I was on maternity leave, because I was looking for ways to still be within the medical field, even though I was on leave, and still share relevant information. And that's how it evolved to include fashion, motherhood, lifestyle, some travel as well. And I just I just desire to inspire people to live their optimal lives, whether that's in preventative medicine, whether that's just taking a moment to extend themselves some grace as a mom. And I think sometimes we just need to see those examples to know that it can be done. So it's been a pleasure to use my platform in that way.
Well, thank you for that. Really appreciate it. And of course, for everyone watching, we were having a laugh with Dr. King before we joined and went live around her life plan. And only if she had have known in December when she transitioned, which way you would have gone. I mean, I think we're all in that situation, but wonderful that you have continued the journey and really leaning into it. So thanks for being with us. Last but certainly not least, we have Alyssa here who's joined us. Alyssa, welcome. Thanks for joining us also.
Of course, thank you. I'm excited to be here. So similar to these other ladies, I am a content creator. My focus first started off in the restaurant scene. Sorry, one second. It started off kind of making content for restaurants. So I partner with places in Chicago to promote their business, their food, things like that. But I've recently been trying to open up my Instagram to be more lifestyle and kind of something we'll talk about later, being more transparent, more relatable, especially for content creators my age. I feel like a lot of the pages are starting to look the same. So you kind of have to find, what makes you different? What does your audience want from you? So with that, I've been trying to focus on basically like affordable finds, like simple, healthy meals you can make at home. I'm actually trying to transition to vegan, vegetarian, so I'll have to check out your page. But just whatever knowledge I have, I want the common person to start to relate to a little bit more. So I've been doing this 3 years. With the pandemic, the whole restaurant thing is kind of what allowed me to reshift my focus since I couldn't partner with them as much. But I'm excited to see what my page evolves into post-pandemic.
That's great. Well, thank you so much for that introduction. How about we just dive in? And I know we've got a number of questions, and I'd like to remind everyone out there that is joining us for today's session, please feel free to submit your questions in the chat online. We are going to have some time throughout our discussion, and we're going to open it up at the end for some attendee questions. So how about we get started? And, there's a bit of a theme here. There's new beginnings. I think every one of us has been thrown a curveball in our industry, and there's real opportunity. And I think the opportunities out there, whether it's resetting the clock in digital marketing, whether it's working with influencers, I think I just want to pose to you all personally in this first question around, just talk through some of the services that you offer specifically, and maybe your specialty areas, whether that's restaurant or lifestyle or hospitality, and then what can they expect from working with you as individuals? And maybe we'll just start with Dr. King.
So I offer a lot of different things, but one of the main things I do is partner in terms of amplifying a particular brand's messaging. So whether that be a clothing brand, whether it be, I've partnered with hotels in the past, really just amplifying particular messaging through my social media and through storytelling. And so I'll give you an example. I've partnered with a couple of hotels recently in the city, and just creating the experience virtually so people can see, ooh, like I want to go there. Like if I go there, I can have this experience and stay in this space, and I'm right near the city. I can go down on the river walk and, enjoy my family. So it's really about, for me, creating the experience that the brand wants their customers to have, and ultimately that I want to have as well, and just showcasing that in a very fun and a very realistic way. I have a daughter who is full of enthusiasm and energy, and so she often makes it to my page in different posts or my stories. So especially if we do a staycation or something in the city, she's generally highly involved. And so on that level, it allows me to promote the kid friendliness of a certain venue. But I really, ideally like to partner with places where I align with, and I can naturally amplify that brand's voice and their messaging.
Gotcha. That's great. Alyssa, what about you in terms of, you were talking through some of the transitional changes and some of the opportunity that you have and new beginnings that COVID's presented. What about you in terms of your who you're working with and what they can expect?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, my main focus is Chicago restaurants. I have, everything Kira just said. I basically do the same thing. It's all about, sometimes I'm promoting a certain event they have going on. If there's, they're trying to push to get people to come for Labor Day weekend or something like that, I'll focus my content around that. But with restaurants, the service I usually offer is just pretty general content creation. There's usually a list of deliverables from, one static post, 3 to 5 stories, tag these people. So it's pretty laid out, which is, I think, very helpful and professional when you're getting a lot of requests coming in. Yeah. So my content, again, focuses on experience, what's going to draw in people to this restaurant, to this new coffee shop. I've heard this before, millennials, that I'm a millennial, we are all about the experience. People will go somewhere just because it has a cool aesthetic. Maybe even they're not sure what kind of food they serve, but they know it's beautiful. So if I can capture that in an image, it helps the brand immensely. Seeing all the taps of people visiting their Instagram page or messaging me like, I went here because of you. It's really rewarding that the content creation does in fact work.
Yeah, that's great. And Sapna, how about you? I mean, I know you have a lot of experience with restaurants as well, but a particular style of food and vegetarian, which I feel like is just continually evolving in the restaurant scene and continually going to new levels.
Yes, absolutely. Just piggybacking off both what Alyssa and Dr. King have said, that it's really about showcasing and storytelling what, either the restaurant, the hotel, the destination has to offer. And definitely, obviously, my niche is sharing about being vegetarian. So I always have a lot of people who are like, wow, I had no idea that you could get vegetarian food in Wyoming, or I didn't know that this restaurant in Chicago would have great vegetarian, things to eat. So that's one of my main kind of exciting things, is to be able to show people that, sometimes in the most unexpected places, you can still find things that you're looking for. And it's really fun that I have so many people always reaching out, asking for recommendations, or, hey, I'm going to be in this part of the city, or, I have a bachelorette party. Where would you recommend? Do we have people that are vegetarian in our group? Where should we go?
That's wonderful. Thank you. I also notice, I think about influencers, and we engage as an agency with a lot of influencers like yourselves. And we're lucky because we have tools like a Julius sort of platform, because we use so many influencers across so many clients. But I notice, and thank you for doing this, you've all got your handles and your name on the Zoom. So I'm going to make the assumption and just open it up here for people that are watching today and they are looking for influencer relationships. I'm assuming that I'm going to go with the pretty confident assumption that you're open to being connected directly, and rather than having to go through an agency model, people can reach out to you and start to have that discussion about, whether you connect personally with a brand or whether it's, your niche. Is that a fair assumption?
Absolutely.
Great. So talk to me about when a brand doesn't, or product maybe doesn't meet your expectation. And I don't mean to necessarily take it down a negative path, but I think there's a lot of learnings in that, and whether it's through the recruitment or getting to know people like yourselves, and whether, your value system or your experience or their brand lives up to that expectation. Just sort of talk us through a little bit of that process and how you would go about it. Because one of the things that I have been asked constantly is, do influencers ever write negative reviews after being compensated for the work that they do? And so just talk to me about some of the experiences that you've had in that regard.
Oh, you're starting with me?
Yeah,
Okay,
we'll just open it up.
For me, if I'm working with a brand, one of the first things is to just set the expectations from the beginning of what both of us are looking for out of our collaboration together. Because I think it's really tough if the brand has one idea and I have something different. And if we're not aligned from the beginning, that already makes it tough for throughout the rest of the project. And especially once I deliver something at the end, if it's not what they're expecting, then a lot of time and energy has been wasted, so to say. And if something doesn't turn out necessarily as I expected, I like to be as authentic as possible, but I'm never one to necessarily like write a negative review or say something bad. I like to work with the brand to say, hey, you know what, maybe this didn't live up to what I was thinking. How can we work together to craft a better message around this, or just work together to make this, you know, a positive experience, because
Sure.
I never want to like say anything awful, because I know that there's something that like great that can come out of it.
Yeah, sure.
I would totally agree with that. And also for myself, when I am starting the process of being connected with a brand, whether I've reached out to them or they've reached out to me, it's certainly if I've reached out to them, I already am interested in the brand. You know, I've already looked them up. I've already been using it for years. It's something I'm already interested in. So it's unlikely for me to have a negative experience with a product, a brand, a location, a venue that I'm already frequenting.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I that's why I try from the beginning. And if a brand is pitching me, then I'm looking to see if our ideals align. Is this something that makes sense for my brand? And sometimes I turn things down, because if it just doesn't align with my brand, me forcing it, I could force a message, but it's not going to be authentic, like Alyssa mentioned earlier. And, you know, and then sometimes I have to think about it and determine, you know, is this going to be a good fit? And just like Sapna said, then that's when you're having those discussions. Okay, what are the expectations on both sides? So I also don't think I've ever written a negative review. I tend to be super optimistic, also very realistic, but I think it's because I choose partnerships that I truly value and I truly see that we are aligned, that doesn't happen. I think a lot of the disconnect comes if the brand and the influencer are not aligned in almost every way. I think there's a way to course correct almost anything. I also think there's ways to frame an experience, even if some parts of it weren't the best, you know, highlighting some of the better parts, and maybe not speaking negatively necessarily of something that you didn't really care for, but just kind of being very like, okay, you can expect these 4 things, but what I really loved was, you know, the food, the room was comfy and, you know, whatever. But I think there's always a way to adjust the messaging so that you can still put it in a positive light. But I honestly think most importantly, you have to make sure you're aligned. Otherwise, it may not be a good fit.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Alyssa, any thoughts to extend on?
Yeah,
to that
I was just say 3 for 3. I'm with you there. Never did a negative review. The way I see it is, especially for me, since my main focus is going into restaurants and experiences, is my experience will not be the same as the next person who walks in the door. It's the same thing about if you eat at a restaurant, why I don't leave bad restaurant reviews either. I used to be a server, so I totally get the situation of things happen. It's crazy in there. So that's kind of my mindset when I go to these restaurants. I'm not a food critic. I'm not, you know, there to criticize the restaurant. I'm here to, like mentioned before, uplift the brand, get a message out, help people. If there's something serious that happens, I'll reach out directly to the client. We'll talk through it, but I would never take it to a public space. I have another friend who's like a foodie, and if she has like a bad experience, she'll let them know and she won't post at all. So to each their own. It's, you know, it works for her, and just whatever you're comfortable with, I guess.
It's really great. So to recap there, I heard three things from you as you were talking. And I think the first thing for practical advice is really for everyone looking to engage with an influencer, someone like yourselves, set the expectation up front, right? Be very crystal clear on what it is that they would like to achieve from the brand and from a mutual relationship. I also heard one of you say, choose the partner that you value. And I think that's really interesting, right? Because that goes beyond the brand and beyond the brand into sort of the deep sort of meaning of the brand, right? It's beyond that. And let's face it, we're all people, right? So, and I think the third thing that I love, Alyssa, that you mentioned was my experience will be different to the next person. And I think that's really, really important to remember, right? Even though it might feel the same and we might think it's the same, our experiences are going to be incredibly different. You know, I think one of the things I'd just love to hear a comment. I've got an example. You know, we had a client of a hotel and had engaged with influencers in a social space. And you sort of alluded to it around the power of the consumer. Like the consumer, I feel like in the last sort of even 5 years has got a whole lot more educated about brands and their value systems and they've done their research, right? Like we're a lot smarter as consumers these days. So I remember this hotel brand and a customer had given a bad rating. And what was really interesting was actually the customer comment got overtaken by positive comments because other consumers and other people that had stayed at this hotel didn't agree with the comment. And it was a little negative, it was a little scathing. But what was really interesting is you saw this profound movement and momentum of positivity. And I promise that was the most negative question I'll ask you, but people ask it all of the time. And it's just so nice to hear, you know, you guys about the upregulating conversation, maybe focusing on the areas that were really positive, you know, taking it offline with the partner and actually making sure that you're not going to do that in a public forum. So thank you for that. So more practically, if people and you know, brands, I see a trend out there that are shifting from working with influencers on an individual or a project basis into a bit more of an ongoing partnership. Can you maybe just sort of share some comments? Are you seeing the same sort of trend out there? Are you open to, you know, ongoing relationships with people that may be watching today?
Yeah, I actually prefer ongoing relationships. Mainly, I want my brand to feel authentic. So when I just do a one-off and then, you know, people forget about it. I am actually working with like a CBD company and we had a contract. So first contract is key if you want something ongoing. And every 2 months, they'll give me a supply. So it's free product in exchange for posting. And so that gives me enough time to keep posting, promoting it more. People will see that it's not an ad or a sponsored post, and it's just something I actually really like and want to share with everyone. So yeah, I'm all for ongoing to make it authentic, to just help the brand more. Of course, if it's within their budget to do so, but I think it's the best route at this point.
Great.
I think having ongoing partnerships also, you've already developed so much time and energy from the beginning. And it's a brand, like you said, that you really value and you really believe in and want to showcase. It just makes it so much easier if we can have a longer term project than just a one-off. And I agree. I definitely prefer like the longer term partnerships than just the short term project.
I feel like we're all one voice here. We all have kind of a shared experience, but I completely agree. I think when I first started, you were just excited to get brand campaigns. But now that I'm several years in, I absolutely see the value on both sides for the brand and the influencer of doing long-term campaigns. Like you become, as an influencer, more invested in the brand. You're more likely to naturally share about the brand, even if it's not sponsored content per se, because it's just become ingrained in your life. the brand partners know what to expect from you. They know the quality of your images, your videos. They know the sound of your voice, not necessarily literally, but just they know that you are going to provide high quality, engaging content that people are interested in seeing. And why not do that over and over? You know, why not repeat? And it becomes just easier just to do, quite honestly, because you've got it down. You know, you're not like, oh my gosh, I have to come up with a whole entire new theme, new concept for this particular product, versus, okay, we've worked with them. How can I spin this to make it a little bit different than the last piece of content that I created? But still, it ties in because I've talked about this 5 times in the past, year. So people know that I really love this, but how can I put a spin on it? So I think it just keeps you more vested in the brand. And it almost keeps you on your toes, because you don't want to just have the same image of you doing the same thing with that same product or in that same restaurant or in that same hotel venue. So it pushes you to do something a little bit different, but within the same context of that particular brand.
That's great. Thank you for that. So, here we are in Pride Month. Happy Pride Month, everyone. I want to talk a little bit about diversity and how important it is to you, or when you're considering a partnership with a brand, that a brand is inclusive and uses a diverse group of partners. And maybe, do you have access to a network, within your own networks of other people that ensure diversity when engaging with brands? Maybe just talk a little bit about that for me.
That's absolutely important for me. Like I mentioned, if I'm reaching out to a brand, it's because I already see that their values align with mine. When they're reaching out to me, one of the first things I'll do is go to their social media platforms and see what their social media is like. Especially for example, for me, for a fashion brand, or even if I partner with hotels, who's on their feed? Does anyone look like me? Can I scroll back, within, maybe 10 squares and see someone that looks like me? Or do I have to scroll back like pages and pages and pages and pages to find someone that looks like me? Because if you don't have me represented, then why do I want to represent you? You know what I mean? It doesn't quite seem like it's aligned. If I can go on a page and see people from every walk of life, and that brand also aligns with my personal values and actually with like what my brand is about, I am more inclined to want to have a further discussion with that brand. Great.
What about you, Sapna?
Yes, agree with everything that Dr. King said, as usual. I agree that for me, it goes back to, it has to be a valued partnership between the brand and myself. And I obviously will go back and look at what they're sharing, who they are, and make sure it aligns with who I am before even going down that path of investing all the time and energy into creating any kind of partnership. Because again, if it doesn't align from the beginning, it's just not going to make sense. And
yeah, absolutely.
Time is valuable for everyone.
And back to, I think it was Alyssa talked about the authenticity part. And I know that that's a word that is overused, but I think it goes back to, we as consumers, while we are looking for those experiences and those validations, the authenticity piece is really important, right? Like, how many of us have booked a hotel or chosen a destination or based on a complete stranger's opinion, whether it's, on a TripAdvisor or a Yelp or a rate review. I mean, I can't tell you how many family members or friends of mine have gone all in on a destination without picking up the phone and just purely reading sort of those comments. So, influencing authenticity, ensuring that experience feels real. And I guess, as diverse as me, like, can I see myself in that picture is really important, right? So Alyssa, anything to add? I think, one of the things we talked about, a couple of things that came out there, you look at people's social platforms, right? Do people look like me? What are people saying about the brand? And it very much feels like a two-way, partnership, right? So you've got to get to know each other with the brand. Let's give some people some practical advice on some other areas and ways that that you might consider a part of the, things that you would consider before you actually partner with a brand. Is it, we talked about reputation, right? We talked about obviously your schedule and things like that, but what are some of the other things that you might sort of think about before doing a partnership?
One key thing, just because of how I'm sure you ladies have ran into this, legitimacy of brands reaching out to you. Instagram has become too easy of a hub for people to make fake accounts with fake brands, having you phishing emails. I actually got my Instagram deleted for like 3 weeks last year from a phishing scam via email that I clicked on for like a clothing partnership. So I think making your brand as legitimate as it can be. I have a business background, so I'll go look on your website. I'll go look at your leadership, look in your CEO's LinkedIn account, put them in Google, see if there's any, red flags in the Google search. So honestly, that's probably my biggest thing I consider before partnering. If you craft a nice email with deliverables, I go on Instagram, see you're a good brand. Maybe I'm a little easy, but I'm sold. Especially for me, I usually do exchange free product for content creation.
Okay.
As instead of compensation.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a little easier for me. So my thing is, I just want to make sure you're a legit, trusted brand. If it's a restaurant, I go to their page and there's like no address or anything, and I'm like, I don't even know if this is real, because I can't find you on Google Maps or anything. So also just staying safe. So that's a big reason.
Yeah. And obviously on that point too, there's all sorts of tools, whether it's Facebook or Instagram, et cetera, that you can verify a business to and have authenticity ticks and things like that. So it's important for businesses to kind of, I'm hearing also you look at their social channels. So it's really important to not just, social channels are one of those things that people, sometimes fall into the trap of like putting out content, but actually not thinking about the maintenance and about the community management and the ongoing sort of dialogue and conversation. Like it is a real commitment to that point. So yeah. What about you, Dr. King? Is there any other things, practical pieces of advice that you could give people considering things that you might consider before partnering?
One thing again, we're all in agreement, so I don't want to repeat anything that Alyssa said because I agree with all of that. But one thing is that I want to know is, does the brand have a clear vision of their brand and of their own messaging? And I know that may seem for a lot more established brands, that's probably like, what do you mean? Do we have a clear, vision for our brand? But some brands that are up and coming, they've never worked with influencers. They've never partnered with influencers. And so they've heard about influencer marketing, but they don't really know how it works and how it goes. And so I've had brands reach out to me, and, I usually just say, what are you looking to do? Like, I'm interested in hearing what you want to do. And sometimes they're really not quite clear on what they want to do or how you can have a mutually beneficial relationship. And so I think that's just really important as well, is that the brand has its own, like we have our own expectations and our values, and just making sure the brand is clear on their expectations and on their values, so that although I can come up with a great concept, I want to make sure that it's aligned with your vision, but you have to know your vision so you can tell me that, so I can make sure, if it's a brand that I'm not already very, well aware of. And so that would probably be one of my other additional things.
Okay, that's great. So we're going to focus a little bit now and turn to the influencer landscape. I've got some quick fire questions here for you, just really around, and just a reminder to everyone out there, please, if you've got any questions as we get into this conversation, please submit it online via the chat, and we're going to open it up at the end so that we can answer some of your direct questions. 2 or 3 of your biggest challenges in the past year that has brought you in the influencer space? Sapna.
Well, for me, one of the biggest issues was that I travel and I eat out, and I wasn't able to do either of those things last year. So I really pivoted in that time of sharing what I was cooking at home and what I was doing on a daily basis here in the Chicagoland area. And I think that just goes back to what all three of us have said our message is, which is being authentic and who we are. So I had to change with the times, and that's what I showcased. And, I still was able to grow my account. And, I think people appreciated just me being honest about who I am and what I was up to.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you for sharing. Alyssa, what are some of your challenges?
Yeah, similar to what you just mentioned. Couldn't eat out, so that was a big challenge. So just lack of opportunities in general, not only for me, because I have a full-time job. This is just fun, my hobby of mine, but it was hard seeing some restaurants I once collaborated with, permanently shut down. It was difficult. And I tried as much as I could to post and push, like offering curbside pickup when that was a thing. And then also just the lack of influencer connections. I used to go to a lot of events where I'd meet a lot of other influencers. I don't mean to make this a selling point, but this is why I'm actually very excited for the summit. I just haven't connected with people in a very long time. So I'm actually really excited to just meet influencers, other restaurants, other groups. And that was probably those two things were the biggest challenge.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's
for
okay.
me, it really, I won't even call it a challenge. I just pivoted. Like Alyssa mentioned, there were no events to go to. Initially, I had a really good friend of mine, and we were like, are there going to be partnerships this year? And we did, especially very early on, we just didn't know. And so I pseudo pivoted, if you will, because this was stuff that I was already doing. But I partnered with some other physicians. We put out a lot of free medical content. We did virtual conferences for women. It's a group of all women physicians. So we use our platforms in that way. And, probably maybe mid-second quarter, things started to pick back up because people had everyone realized we need to shift. And everyone realized, okay, there are certain things that we can shift virtually. And fortunately, because of my professional career outside of digital content creation, I was able to use my expertise as a physician to do virtual speaking engagements or to come and talk to young women about, how their bodies are changing. So I was able to, and it was still within the content creation space because I was working with brands who needed that type of messaging for a physician. So for me, it's been great to have that overlap because it allowed me to just kind of okay, we're gonna go this way for now, and all right, we're gonna come back this way. So it was good for me.
Yeah. So, I'm picking up on a couple of things there around, vaccines obviously being more readily available. We're seeing returns of events. We're seeing people out there. We're seeing people dine in restaurants. Events and festivals are starting up again. I mean, give me a gut check there from each of you. Do you feel like in the digital space, and particularly the influencer approach, is going to return to sort of a pre-pandemic level? Is it going to exceed it? I mean, I've heard stories of really, positive, people are busier than they have ever been, now. And I know it's going to take a while to come back, but specifically influencers, how are you feeling there in terms of partnerships and opportunities of working with people?
I think if budget permits is my best answer, because I know with the pandemic, I've heard directly from clients, it was the first place they made cuts was in marketing efforts, which I get. Why are you promoting a restaurant or a brand if, sales are low and you're just not getting the same amount of people? So at the same time, I'm like, business is probably going to be booming more than ever this summer. I think they announced that we're fully open in 2 weeks or something. So with that, yes, I am optimistic. I'm not sure again, when it comes to budget and what brands want to do. But I think we're on the level to get back to where we once were. Okay.
I agree with what Alyssa had to say. And I've definitely noticed I'm starting to get a lot more invites and things opening up. And, we love your help in, letting people know that we're back on track and we want people coming in now.
Great.
Yeah, I would add to that, because everyone was forced to, like, all the industries were forced to pivot. I
Mhm.
think people have gotten so creative about how they bring people together. Just like this whole summit is going to be in this gigantic, huge space, but there won't be, a million people there. And I think people have just gotten really creative. So I think, or I hope, that people will try and find ways to be creative in their approach to having different events, how they promote their business, especially with summer coming, because it'll at least be warm and events can be held outside, weather permitting. But I think it's just pushed people to be more creative and to know that people are flexible. I think obviously
Right.
last year in the beginning, it was kind of like, oh my God, what's going to happen? How's everything going to go? But once things kind of got up and rolling online, with different events and different, brand partnerships and things, I think it lets people see that we can really do anything. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You just have to have that creative aspect to figure out how you can make it work, for that particular event or partnership.
The word creativity, and I know we live in that space to a certain degree, all of us, and I know the team at a teamer do as well. But I think creativity in a pandemic world has forced us, to your point, to rethink our business and how we do it. Like, I don't know, I don't want restaurant outdoor dining to go away in the middle of the streets. And maybe the city officials wouldn't appreciate that, but it reminds me of sort of some of those European sort of experiences of dining al fresco and outside. And, maybe we can dine in the fall with blankets outside, and have a new experience. I mean, that's one example, and I joke with it, but creativity is going to be fundamental in terms of anything moving forward, right? Like, nothing is normal any longer. And I think it just gives us a number of opportunities. You're obviously open to, in that two-way spirit of creativity around coming up with ideas with brands and partners. So people, might be thinking about engaging with you, like, are there any examples of creativity that you can just that you think about, that you're just like, that you've learned in this past year, that's like, we didn't used to do that, like, this was really cool, or we tried it and it failed maybe? I mean, anything that you can share there?
I think one of the biggest things that changed, at least on the social media platforms, were
Right.
people doing a significant um, number of Instagram lives. I know I did with partners as a
Right.
way to showcase their brand. Had I done Instagram lives before? Yes, probably not to this degree. Everyone, obviously not everyone, but most people on the entire planet are on social media. And so you theoretically have access to all of these people. And I found that doing Instagram lives was a way to highlight a brand. And then all of that messaging, I mean, unless you don't save the live, which I don't know why you wouldn't, but then all of that messaging is saved. And so I thought that was a really great use of the social media platforms, because it allowed you to kind of like do two things at once. Instead of hosting an in-person event, you're doing an unboxing with a brand on their Instagram live. So I think that was one thing that I thought was great from last year.
Great, thanks for sharing that. Anyone else?
I think with the TikTok explosion of last year, short form video content really took like a huge leap last year. And so you've seen I wouldn't say a shift, but just like the change of just photos to now much more video content.
Right.
So I think that's like one of the biggest things I definitely saw from last year.
And don't you think people's tolerance for the online experience, like, like everything we used to strive for, I don't want to say perfection, but, a really polished sort of, I mean, internet cuts out, dogs walk into your office, the doorbell rings, the contract, you know what I mean? The power goes out. Like, don't you think tolerance also too for some of the sort of unknown things? I mean, this is our new reality. I mean, I know we're getting back to normality and we'll be able to see each other at the trade show next week. But there is a lot more tolerance I'm finding too from online and live and just some of those experiences that consumers are okay with it. Okay, so I'm going to remind everyone before we ask our last question around to submit your questions online, because we're going to take a few questions before we wrap up. This has been a really great conversation. So a question for each of you, I think, I'll start with you. What are you most looking forward to for the rest of this year? We're getting out and about. There's signs of positivity. Business is coming back. What's the one thing that you're most looking forward to?
The one thing for me personally is just travel. Like I felt so stuck last year, as I know so many people did. Yeah. But travel truly is in my soul and makes me so happy. So getting back on planes and just exploring new destinations is what I'm most looking forward to.
Great. Alyssa, what about you?
Might be obvious, but the restaurant scene. That was kind of my bread and butter when I first started, and I enjoy doing products and the things at home. But when someone asked me about what's my favorite part of doing this, I mean, again, because I don't get compensated, it's usually free. I can only do after 6 o'clock or on weekends. I genuinely just like helping brands. I think that's just my heart, though. I just not feel bad, but I just really want them to succeed and do well. And I assume if they're using influencers, they really thought about it in their marketing budget. Okay, we need to try this to help build the brand, or, maybe I see a lot of brands I work with end up, shutting their doors 4 months later. So I kind of viewed it as helping others. And I'm honestly just excited to, never thought I'd say this, be in a crowded room, people lining up at a bar to get a drink. I'll get sick of it after a week, but I really am just excited for the city to open back up.
Yeah, great. Dr. King.
Yeah, I think I just want to be able to see friends. And a lot of my friends were also in the influencer space. And we just had a lot of fun together in person. Mm-hmm. And so I look forward to that, as well as being able to travel safely again and comfortably. I actually just booked or got to an event in LA for August, and I was like, am I actually doing this? Is this happening? It felt so strange. I'm all of the mental gymnastics I was doing in my head, I would have never done 2 years ago. It would have been click, click, book, and so, but I'm looking forward to experiencing that again. Yeah. The excitement of just seeing people in real life.
Yeah, you said a key word in there too for me for events, and I know that, and I love the fact that a number of you are ingrained in the restaurant industry and scene, and a big part of that and the recovery to that is really around events. Not just events in food and beverage, but events across the board for business and so forth, convention centers, filling hotel ballrooms. I know personally I've accepted invitations this week to a couple of events. Talk to me a little bit about how you might be able to work with event planners and that particular part of the industry to help amplify events, because we've got to get to a point where we're comfortable and we support the industry and bring back events, right? So you've got go for it. No, go for it, please.
Okay. No, I was just going to say, I think there's ways that we can safely bring about brand awareness, whether it be for a restaurant opening, whether it be, I know there's some new hotels in the city or more recently opened hotels in the city, and just showcasing what they have to offer. I mean, all of those things can be done fairly safe. They don't have to be done in a crowded room of people. If I'm partnering with a hotel for a staycation, I'm just bringing myself, you know what I mean? But I can show how amazing it looks. Someone else, not an influencer, shared a hotel with me, the new one on Navy Pier. And so after she shared it, I literally went there and I was like, oh, by her word of mouth, I was like, I am sold. I need to go here. But again, that people look to us for that. So I think there's definitely ways that we can still do those things safely if there's an upcoming event you can still create content around that upcoming event without it being done in a way that's irresponsible or not safe. Again, we just have to think creatively and figure out how we can get the content created.
Sure.
I hope that answered the question.
Yeah, absolutely. Any other tips there, Sapna or Alyssa, in terms of how you might integrate with an event?
I second that. I mean, obviously, I'm thinking of the summit, which they've done a great job at promoting, you know, with these educational sessions. I don't know if you all know, but I work at Salvi Media. We're a video production company. We are the video sponsor for the event. So I've actually been working closely with Tim and Dylan to make all the videos, the pre-promotion of the event. So there are a lot of creative ways you can get an event out there. I know sometimes I'm going to an event on Saturday and they just kind of sent me an invitation and like 2 promo videos they made. It is like on brand with mine. So that's why it's good that I can post it and like tell people to go and whatnot. So I think having marketing collateral things ahead of time to just help push an event and then finding your trusted influencers to share it is like a perfect combination.
Yeah.
I think also too from the brand side, just remembering that people are still along the spectrum of how safe they feel coming back to events and restaurants and travel and such. So keeping in mind that yes, maybe a good portion now are comfortable, but we still have to slowly kind of handhold getting back some of the other people who might be a little scared or timid or just haven't really gone back out to do things yet.
Mm-hmm. And I guess a really important thing too for all of you to be out there and promoting events is getting an invitation might be a good first step for people that might be interested in having who's who at their event. So I'm sure that's a good way to reach out as well. So we're just going to look at some questions here. And you know, thank you all so much for your insights here. Well, I just have a look at some questions that we've got online. So the first one we've got here is, do you work with brands of all budgets? If they could provide, if they provide complimentary product or experience, do you still require compensation? And so I heard, Alyssa, you also mentioned too that part of yours is not necessarily always compensation. You would also consider gifting of product or the actual experience and things like that. I think you alluded to that a little bit.
Yeah. When it comes to it's mainly restaurants only.
Sure.
In a situation like that, it's just the bulk of what I do is, you know, sometimes it's get whatever you want from the menu. Sometimes it's like 2 entrees, 1 appetizer, things like that. But I do have other partners where I've been compensated of like 1 flat rate. I think I've worked with Jewel Osco a few times to promote some of their products, and those usually have a larger budget that they can work with. What I would say is if it's up, we all might be different. Some people, you know, only take a certain amount. You have to make sure it's worth your time, and especially with the deliverables. So if it's something that's, you know, I actually saw a post recently from another influencer saying how she felt taken advantage of by one of the clients before, like asked her to take like professional photos, edit them, make reels, TikToks, and for free. You know, and there's like a point when it's, you know, how much are you getting versus how much are you giving? So speaking to whoever asked the question, you know, everything we said is just have a clear goal, you know, be realistic, treat influencers, you know, like a person you're hiring, treat them like a business. Because for some people that do it full time, it is. Maybe I'm a little more lenient because again, I do it for fun, but some people are doing this very seriously and trying to make a living off it. And I think that's just something to consider always.
Yeah, I think the other point too is, my gosh, like brands, you know, build up databases and social followings. You build up momentum and following from the people that you inspire and influence. And so that's a very real and serious part of, and that just doesn't happen overnight, right? So I'm hearing flexibility. I'm not going to go specifically into compensation, but just a quick answer, yes or no. We, you know, consider from small brands to big brands, everything in between. You know, there's obviously 2-way dialogue to be had there, and but you're open to working with brands and event planners of all different budget sizes. Yeah, thumbs up. I love that. Yes, look at that. All good. We've got a good question here. How do you predict the influencer role will change as businesses reevaluate their marketing and outreach strategies. And I think the follow-up question to that is sort of connected is, do you think that businesses will work with influencers more or less?
I think it's going to be a more integral part of marketing strategies. And because of that, it would likely lead to working with them more. I mean, I feel like traditional marketing, whether it be in a magazine, whether it be a commercial ad, half the time, if people are watching a show that's on it doesn't have commercial interruptions, you're like, nowadays you're fast forwarding through the commercials, so you're missing out on a lot of that that kind of direct marketing. And versus people are always on their phone, whether they're watching a show on their phone, whether they're on social media, and so they're going to be more likely inundated with messaging being on social media than they will. Like, I don't typically pick up a newspaper. My mom does, because she always has. So she's reading that, this event is happening at this museum. But I'm like, oh, that's interesting. I hadn't heard about that, because I'm not reading those sources of information. So I think, just depending on the generation that you're seeking to market to, influencer marketing is extremely relevant.
Yeah, I would sort of attest to that too. I'm seeing a lot of our clients right now working with influencers on levels that I've never seen before. And 5, 10, 15 influencers at a time for certain campaigns, projects, etc. And it goes to a lot of the things that you talked about today, that authenticity, that experience, the value proposition, interest based. So yeah. Anything else? What do you think, Sapna? Influencers are going to be hotter than ever, right?
I really think so. I think just especially even as I've seen in the last couple of weeks, starting to get more emails about things coming back, opening up. And, I think brands are just looking now just how to get to the word out that, we're open.
That's great.
Yeah, it is.
That's awesome. Well, team, part of my official duty of moderator is that I need to keep us on time, right? And we've just come up right on the hour, because I want to be respectful of everyone's schedule. So a couple of things to recap that I heard practically. Set the expectation up front, right? Choose the partner that you value, get to know them, right? Have that two-way conversation. My experience will be different to the next person's. Gosh, such a simple thing, but we're knee deep in it, right? Make sure you maintain your social channels. Don't just, post and, community engagement, commit to the social channel that you've got the time to do. You don't have to do everything. You can do one thing really, really well versus spreading your time too thin. Two-way valued partnership. I heard the legitimacy piece was really key. Does the brand have a clear vision? I think that's a really interesting reminder, a respectful reminder, that just making sure that you're very clear on what it is that you're doing out there. And obviously, we all think that influencer marketing is just going to be so much more important than ever before for our industry. I want to say thank you all very much. Let's give each other virtual high fives for your insights, your experience, your candor. Very much appreciated. And I really hope that for everyone that was tuned in today, that you had the opportunity to learn some practical experience, and whether you are dealing with the 3 influencers here that have joined us today, or whether you're looking to engage in influencer relationships. So as we say, their handles are on their names here. I know we're going to be sharing not only the session as a follow-up, but I know Tim and Dylan and the entire team at Atima have got a plan about making sure that you get some great practical tips from today. And of course, we all look forward to the Hospitality and Tourism Summit next week. And of course, all the other sessions that are happening both virtually and live. So I want to thank you all, Alyssa, Sapna, Dr. King, for your insights. And it's been an honor to have this conversation with you. So thank you all so very much. Tim, over to you.
Great job. Some fantastic insights. I very much appreciate them. And I'm sure Our audience will as well. And Dr. King, you mentioned the hotel tour you took on Navy Pier at the Hotel Sable. For those of you who are watching, you'll actually be able to do that tour on Tuesday. So thanks for the segue, Dr. King.
You're welcome.
And so a quick reminder, please join us at 11 a.m. tomorrow for another great session entitled 8 Ways to Elevate Your Guest Experience. And that will be followed by our final virtual education session at noon tomorrow entitled 15 Tourism Industry Trends to Help You Plan for Success. So please note that all 7 of our education sessions will be available on demand after they run initially. 6 of the sessions will get CMP credits if you are a planner. So it's a great opportunity to get some points. And finally, I look forward to seeing you next Tuesday, June 8th at Navy Pier's Aon Grand Ballroom. Please spread the word to your industry friends, and I look forward to seeing you there. Thanks so much and have a great day.